Let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, my strength and my Redeemer. A friend of mine from England sent me something that I want to share. It is a poem, and it is written in the first person as if it came from the mind of Philip in the New Testament. And it is based upon an incident in the 6th chapter of Mark. When we returned and told him all we had done, I, for one, was emptied out like a husk that has scattered its seed upon hard ground. We had not had time even to eat. Always the open hand, always the blind eyes, always the deaf ears, always the wound to be healed. My thoughts were like wild birds beating the bars of the cage for empty skies. Even now, the smell of the people clung to my hair and clothes. Oil and musk and sandalwood, it hung in my hair. Their voices went on and on in my head, monotonous waves wearing my mind away. Rock is worn by the waves to sand. I wanted to shut my mind, that my thoughts close on my peace. I wanted to close the peace of my love in my heart like dew in a dark rose. But he told us to rest. We went in a small ship, the wind and water moving in her. She lives in their sweetness of life, a bride. Her sail, a white wing, unmoving, moves with the tide. She lay to the wind, and we gave our hearts with a sigh to the breath of the Spirit of love. But when we came to the shore, the people were there. They had found us out. Always the open hand, always the blind eyes, always the deaf ears, always the wounds to be healed. They were there everywhere. Insects, there in the sun, when someone has lifted a stone. I knew they would drain him and wring him out to the last drop of the fountain water of life. I was sick of it all, with a dry husk for a heart. But he saw the flocks wanting shepherd and fold. Pity in him rose a clear spring for the world's thirst, and love was a pasture land. So it went all day, always the open hand, always the dull mind, always the slow heart, always the nameless fears, and self-pity and tears, until the sun went up in the blaze of the day's heat, and with red wine burning through thin gold, it was lowered slowly on to the altar stone of the darkening world where the sheep were in fold. We thought, now it is night, he will send them away. The hour is late, we said, this is a desert place. Send them away, Lord, to buy food and be fed. But you give them to eat. The grass in that place shone exceedingly green, I remember, because when the brain is dust, the cool greenness of grass is absurdly sweet. Then let us go with what money we have and buy them bread. Bid them sit down on the grass and give them to eat, the Lord said. Matthew and Mark and Luke have written these things. They tell of the boy who brought us 2 little fish and some loaves of bread. The boy was one of the crowd. He went as he came. As long as the world lasts, the world will remember him, but no one will know his name. They sat down on the grass. My heart contracted. My mind was withered up. But Christ poured out his tenderness like wine poured out into a lifted cup. Always the open hands, always the blind eyes, always the mouth to be fed. And I, for one, was emptied out like a husk that had scattered its seed upon hard ground. But he saw the flocks, wanting shepherd and fold. Pity in him rose in a clear spring, for the world's thirst and love was a pasture land. The Lord blessed the bread. He put it into our hands, and it multiplied. Not in his hands, but in mine. Even now, remembering this, my thoughts shut like a folding wing. My mind is a blank sheet of light in the mystery of the thing. I gave, and my hands were full, again and again and again. Pity in him fell on my dry dust. It was summer rain, and the husk of my heart expanded and filled again, and was large with grain. For me, the miracle was this, that a clear stream of Lord's love, not mine, flowed out of my soul, a shining wave over my fellow men. These things I have told you happened a long while since. Our cherished Lord is dead. He was crucified. Now, as then, we go about in the crowd telling his love and how he rose from the dead and risen in us, he lives in the least of men. But I think nobody understands until I touch their wounds and they know the healing of his hands. On the night of the Pasch, before he died, he blessed the bread and put into our hands to increase and be multiplied to the end of time. Now, if I turned my face away from the marketplace, I should be haunted, hearing the rustle of wheat in the darkness, striving, pushing up to the light. I should hear his words falling like slow tears in the supper room when he prayed that all may be one, the Father and Son, even as they are one, falling like slow tears over the sown fields. And I should see the world like a young field of wheat, growing up for the grain, watered by his tears. Always the open hands, always the blind eyes, always the slow mind, always the deaf ears, and always Christ our Lord, crowned with the following thorn and ringed with spears. I know now that I never see the print of his feet in the dusk where the Son of Man trod, that in every man forever I meet the Son of God. It is a slow truth a forbearing truth that human need is infinite. And if a man devotes all of his time, all of the distilled essence of his wisdom, and all of the manifold complex of his resources to the meeting of human need, and devotes himself exclusively to it, every hour of every day of every year, for 1,000 years, without eating or sleeping or resting, at the end of the 1,000 years, human need would still be infinite. Therefore, the wise man learns that since he cannot make a quantitative impression on infinity, he can make a qualitative impression on infinity. So he puts at the disposal of human need the best that he can give, knowing that when he does this, the great God of life pours through this opening and multiplies his energies and his gifts. Always the open hand, always the teary eye. Let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, my rock and my redeemer.